everyone, you're okay.
The king, queen, and minister have gone outside to try and restore order.
Have you seen them? Are they okay?
Nope. Sorry to disappoint.
Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. I'd like to start this video by giving you my too long didn't watch. Stranger of Paradise is a strange and flawed game with last-gen graphics, a convoluted and poorly told story that will leave even the most hardcore of Final Fantasy fans confused, and has a voice cast that is meme-worthy. But despite all of its flaws, it's incredibly fun to play. Its gameplay and combat mechanics are tight, responsive, and deep, providing plenty of different playstyles and progression paths to not only keep you engaged as you progress through the 20-plus hour story, but will also have you doing the side content just so that you can keep playing and unlocking new jobs and skills. I suggest that if you're interested in checking out Stranger of Paradise, don't do it for the story or because it has Final Fantasy in its title, but because its combat is amongst the best that a Souls-like has to offer. Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin was released in March of 2022, and to be honest, the only thing I knew about it going in was that its main character said chaos a lot. So much so that it became a meme that circulated the internet for a while. So what is Stranger of Paradise like? Well, it's kind of like Nioh. Not Nioh 2, but the original, Nioh 1. Developed by Team Ninja, Stranger of Paradise will instantly feel familiar to anyone who's played Nioh by the same developer. Its combat, mission structure, and visuals are very similar to Nioh. Whether that's a good thing or not depends on if you enjoyed Team Ninja's Souls-like games in the past. That's right, Stranger of Paradise is a Final Fantasy Souls-like, with many of the mechanics that you would expect, such as respawning enemies at bonfires, which are called cubes in this game, frustrating and sometimes insane difficulty swings, and a focus on combat and gameplay over story. In this review, we're going to break down Stranger of Paradise and explore its flaws and successes in depth, starting with graphics and its technical state. I played Stranger of Paradise on the PlayStation 5 and it performs really well. I didn't have any FPS drops, something that would make or break a game when it comes to Souls-likes. They require fast input and reaction times. But even with this perfect frame rates, Stranger of Paradise isn't going to win any awards for its graphics. The character models aren't stunning, the environments tend to be smaller and uninteresting, and often filled with this strange haze that you would encounter in a PlayStation 1 or 2 game in an attempt to keep the frame rates from dipping in larger areas. Stranger of Paradise isn't ugly, but it won't wow you either. Worse still, it feels very double A. Character models don't move much in cutscenes, the environments are very limited in where you can go and what you can interact with. They can also be very small, with a lot of backtracking or clever little tricks to hide the scale, similar to how Dark Souls did it with their unlockable doors and alternate paths. Something that I encountered, and I didn't expect at all considering the power of the PlayStation 5, was how often there were loading screens. I had just come off of playing Final Fantasy 16, where you could fast travel across the map instantly without a loading screen. And Final Fantasy 16 is a graphical powerhouse compared to Stranger of Paradise. But Stranger of Paradise would have long loading screens before entering a mission, or would fade to black for an extended amount of time after a cutscene. And if you die, which happens quite frequently, you have to wait for the level to reload before continuing on. However, enemies would instantly respawn after you touch a cube, which is the game's equivalent to a bonfire, to reset them. It makes me wonder what exactly the game is loading each time you die, since it can't be the enemies, since they did that instantly before. Alright, let's talk about the audio. When it was first announced, clips of the main character Jack made the rounds because of his single-minded quest for chaos. To be fair, it's not the voice actor's fault. They all do an adequate job with what they had. It's the writing that fails Stranger of Paradise the most. I don't know if it's a translation issue or there was script that was just like a first draft, but it's terrible. I'm not going to go too far into it because I think the following clips that I'm going to show you now will speak for themselves.
My mission is to kill chaos. That's all I know. All I care about is seeing chaos dead. I need to. It's not a hope or a dream. It's like a hunger, a thirst. Chaos. No. I am to become. And who are you? We're here to kill chaos.
The prophecy's very own warriors of light.
The story of Stranger of Paradise is convoluted and poorly told, even as someone who has played most of the mainline Final Fantasy games in the past. Even after I read the wiki after I beat the game, I was still confused by a lot of it. I'm sure there's a lot of good stuff in there, but the way they told it was just bafflingly bad. Stranger of Paradise is sort of like a prequel to the first Final Fantasy that was released in 1987. If you missed it because you weren't born at the time, or you can't pick up a copy of it now, or you just don't want to play a game that's over 35 years old, don't worry about it. Aside from a few names and locations making a reappearance, you don't really need to have played the first Final Fantasy game to understand Stranger of Paradise. I say that because even if you did play it, it won't really help you at all to comprehend what the hell is happening in this game. It's not just because of the confusing events of Stranger of Paradise, it's just how it's told. So you play as Jack, a person who has no memory of his past, that has been sent to the land of Cornelia to fight Chaos. Joining you are Jeb and Ash. They're two companions that also have their memory. People of Cornelia have a prophecy that says there's going to be 4 warriors of light arriving to their world to fight evil and cleanse these 4 crystals of darkness that's tainted them. The problem is, at the beginning of the game, there's only Jack, Jeb, and Ash. They're missing that 4th member. Plus, the crystals of light that they're supposed to have to prove their identity are pitch black instead. Not off to a great start. Stranger of Paradise takes the classic good versus evil story and turns it on its head. What if the simple story of Final Fantasy I went wrong? To make matters worse, Stranger of Paradise has a lot of the story and lore contained in these small logs that are easily missed during missions. It's through these logs and memos that more of the story is revealed. As the story progresses, there are flashbacks and flash forwards, time travel shenanigans, and other problems that further muddy the waters of the plot. It doesn't help that Jack, who's the main character, and the player's viewpoint into this world and its story, doesn't care about his history or why he's there at all. At multiple points in the story, when your companions are discussing what's happening or their past or missing memories, Jack just shuts them down harshly. It's a terrible way to present the story, since Jack is the only means through which we as the player can understand what's happening as well. Imagine if in Harry Potter, when everyone is discussing the magical world and Hogwarts, Harry just tells everyone to shut the hell up because he only cares about killing Voldemort. In some of the instances, Jack is one of the biggest assholes in gaming history. He isn't an anti-hero or someone who may act rough and uncaring, but is secretly the opposite. This guy just doesn't care about anything at all besides fighting chaos. So if Jack can't be used as the means to tell us what's happening in the story, or what the characters think about events, then it must be his companions, right? No, that's just wrong. They're just window dressing. By the end of the story, you're supposed to feel something about these people and what's happening to them. But that's like feeling bad about strangers you're watching on the bus or train. They don't really mean anything to you when you don't know anything about them at all. There's almost zero character building outside of a few things revealed in logs or memos. If you want to play Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, don't do it for the story. It's just a means to have the players fight enemies from the Final Fantasy universe, and it's not much more than that. Now, let's talk about the reason why you're going to be sticking around to play Stranger of Paradise, the gameplay. It's really good and fun. You can forgive the terrible storytelling and the cringe-inducing dialogue just to play more of this game. Stranger of Paradise, like Team Ninja's other game Neo, is a Souls-like. Based on the From Software games Dark Souls and Demon Souls, Souls-likes focus on the combat first and foremost. Stranger of Paradise is unlike any other entry in the Final Fantasy series. There isn't any turn-based mechanics. Fights take place in real time with an AI-controlled party that have different jobs or roles that they play and can be outfitted with weapons and equipment for stat bonuses. Let's start with the combat, since that's what Stranger of Paradise does best. Jack, who you control, can take different jobs based on the weapon or equipment that he's using. Jobs have ability trees that can be unlocked as you progress through that job, each capping at level 30. You are then free to continue that job if you want, although you won't get any experience for it. But you will enjoy everything you have unlocked, or you can move on and level up another job. Jobs come in a variety of melee and magical options, with some casting spells from staffs and environmental effects, or maybe you want to play a healer that does holy damage, or perhaps you want the biggest, heaviest sword you can find and swing that around. There are over 24 jobs to choose from, and they all feel amazing to play with and explore. There are so many options that you can pick and choose from what you want amongst the different jobs, and they come in different varieties as well. Think of jobs like classes in an RPG like Dungeons & Dragons. But the difference is you're never locked into a single class. You can swap them out at any time, and the best part is you can always have 2 equipped at any time, giving you the option to switch it quickly on the fly. So if you want to have a melee build and a magic build always ready, you can do that. The enemies you're fighting are all from the Final Fantasy series. They retain their elemental weaknesses and abilities that you're going to be familiar with. Stranger of Paradise introduces a new stagger mechanic, a small yellow bar underneath the enemy's health bar that, once it's depleted, will allow Jack to just instantly kill an enemy. This gives you an option in some of your builds to focus more on the stagger mechanic than direct damage, since often you can insta-kill an enemy much earlier by staggering them than you would by hammering away at their health. But there is something that may turn off players from the excellent combat. The difficulty of Stranger of Paradise is beyond anything you've experienced in a Final Fantasy game before. If you played Nioh, then you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Unlike a typical Souls game where FromSoft has a tough but fair mentality and have many different ways of approaching combat or bosses, Team Ninja has a hard, frustrating, and do it the way we want you to or else approach to games. This means that you're going to find encounters incredibly hard if you aren't playing the game the way the developers want you to. Some bosses make it very clear that you need to use magic. Others require you to stagger them or use a specific ability or build. Where in Dark Souls you can melee your way through the entire game, or use magic or a single weapon, Stranger of Paradise will require you to adapt to the gameplay or you're going to fail, repeatedly. I died more times in this game than I did in Demon Souls or Dark Souls. After banging my head against the wall in frustration, sometimes for hours at a time, I was instantly taken back to when I first played Nioh, and I would get stuck on the first boss in that game as well. This is a seriously hard game, and there's one difference that sets it apart from Dark Souls. There's a difficulty setting. So if you're failing over and over again on a boss, there is an option to set it to story mode, which is essentially the easy mode. There's also a hard mode if you're a masochist who wants to play it. I personally think you should probably seek help if you're trying that, but to each their own, I guess. I played it on normal mode throughout the entire game, and though a lot of the levels and bosses were fine, there's definitely a few gatekeeping bosses that require you to get on board with the mechanics or you just won't beat them. Just don't throw your controller in frustration when you fail a lot. I had to set mine down multiple times and just walk away before coming back to it, something that I perfected during my time playing Nioh. If you're having a lot of trouble and you have a few friends that also own Stranger of Paradise, you can play multiplayer. It works really well too, or at least I heard. I don't play online very much, so I didn't test it out, but it should be really easy to do. You just set up a session from any cube and your friends can join you for that mission instead of your AI companions. The missions, they're very similar to how they work in Nioh. You select the missions from the main map, and then you start in a new area with an objective. Side content all take place in these main mission maps with different objectives and certain areas blocked off. You're often rewarded with crafting materials or new weapons and equipment when you complete it. Which brings me to the loot system. It's certainly interesting. Like Nioh, you're going to receive an avalanche of items and equipment after every enemy you kill. Weapons, armor, accessories. There will be so many after each mission that you're going to be sifting through hundreds of different items to choose what you want. I'll be perfectly honest, there is way too much loot in Stranger of Paradise. It makes it so that nothing feels unique, nothing is important. If you like that sword, too bad, it's going to be obsolete within a few minutes. You are constantly equipping new items during a mission because each new mission is a higher level than the last. So, you beat a mission with an equipment level of 80. That means as soon as you start the next mission, all your equipment is going to be too weak because that mission's inventory settings is set for 100 or even higher. There's a way to upgrade your equipment, but honestly, there isn't any point. You will be finding new gear so often that it's a waste to upgrade anything. Why would you boost a sword's fire damage or something else if you're just going to pick up a better one as soon as you enter a new area? My advice is just use the auto allocation tool. Although Be aware that it doesn't select accessories for you, so those you're going to need to assign manually to both your main character and your companions. So my conclusion, should you play Stranger of Paradise? I'm not sure. If I had to rate it, I would give it a 6 or 6.5 out of 10. It depends on how big of a fan you are of Final Fantasy and Team Ninja's combat. If you love Neo, chances are you're going to like this one. If you've never played Neo but enjoy Souls-likes, then you may like this one as well. Just don't expect a good story or a cast of lovable characters. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and like the video for more content in the future.